Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MB Om podcast. My name is Amanda and I'll be your host for this and all episodes of the show. This episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by Offering Tree. When you're a yoga teacher and you're trying to build your digital presence, it can be daunting. First, you might need a website. There are a lot of great tools for building websites like WordPress, Wix, and Squarespace. Then you need a way to email your students. Again, there are tools for that like MailChimp and Constant Contact, but that's another account to pay for and a password to remember. Then you need a way to schedule and register your students. Again, there are tools for that, but it's another account to create and pay for and another password to remember. Oh wait, how do I integrate my scheduling tool with my website? There are so many things to remember. So instead of putting all of this stuff off for another day because it's too daunting, let me tell you about a better way. Offering Tree set out to make creating your digital presence fun, easy, and affordable. With one account, you can create a website in minutes that has your schedule built right in. They also have email marketing tools to collect email addresses, send newsletters, and automated emails to your subscribers. It all works seamlessly together with one account and one subscription. To learn more about what Offering Tree can do for your digital presence, visit offeringtree.com/MBOM. Offering Tree has been supporting MBOM for close to a year now, and I not only love the product, but I also love the people. The team at Offering Tree is super awesome. They are a small business just like you and me, and they have great customer service for anything that you need. And Offering Tree is providing special pricing for MBOM listeners, so be sure to visit offeringtree.com/MBOM to receive your discount. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you in part by FavYogis. The FavYogis app is back with new features for teachers that let you create and manage your own private classes while making payment and registration a breeze. Do you have regular private clients? Make life easier with autopay. Forget about remembering to Venmo, or if you're Canadian, try some sort of e-transfer or PayPal combination. You can use autopay to enable repeat payments and keep calendars in sync with classes. Google Calendar integration automatically updates teachers and student classes when you make changes. It's still just your yoga. Teachers add classes, students add teachers, and teachers and students stay connected. So head on over to the App Store on your device and find FavYogis. It's FavYogis. On top of that, it's totally free to download and give a try. So head on over to your App Store and find FavYogis. FavYogis. Oh, and make sure you use code MBOM and let them know that I sent you. All right, on to today's episode of the podcast. I am super excited to be joined by Theresa Berenato. And Theresa is a yoga teacher, corporate yoga teacher, and also an online yoga teacher. And Theresa shares how she started her yoga business by teaching corporates and then developed an online yoga membership because her students asked about it. She actually doesn't teach in a yoga studio. She's built her entire business between her corporate clients as well as her online business. And I just think she has a really cool thing going. So I'm super excited to share this episode, and I hope that you guys can learn a lot from Theresa and her story. So without further ado, here she is. Theresa, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you today. And where are you joining me from?
Mount Laurel, New Jersey. So South Jersey area, like kind of near Philadelphia.
Okay, cool. I've never been to Jersey other than like flying into Newark. That's like all I've done there. So
yeah, and that's not the best impression of New Jersey. It's kind of like crummy around that area, but it's just right now we're in like kind of touring, getting towards the end of summer, and it's still pretty hot, but it's overall I like Jersey because you get to experience all the seasons, which I enjoy.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's lots that I want to talk today with you about your business and everything that you've created, but I want to back up a little bit. Can you tell me your yoga story and how you first got into yoga?
Yeah, for sure. So it started in 2012. me and a group of friends decided that we wanted to try hot yoga for our very first yoga class. There was one person we had brought with us who had gone to it, so she kind of like told us what to expect and everything like that. But we were all excited just to like try a group thing together. We heard it was like really challenging. It was a Bikram 90-minute hot yoga class, so we were all excited to go. And right off the bat, like I knew Bikram wasn't the only type of yoga, or like hot yoga wasn't the only type of yoga. So I wasn't like in love with the heat aspect, but I did like the yoga. I loved the way it worked the body. Honestly, it was also very aesthetically pleasing, like looking to me. It seemed like people who practice yoga were, very healthy and in good shape. And to me, it was very like physical in the beginning. So, I started going to yoga classes, like other than hot yoga, but I also mostly did a lot of yoga at home. I downloaded an app, which I don't remember what it's called, but I'm pretty sure you can still get it today, although I think you have to pay for it, like back in the day, not that long ago. It was free, and I was really focused on like, nailing the crow pose, and I wasn't even so much, it's so silly now, but I wasn't even so much into like the breathing. I just loved the way that the yoga poses looked, and I was really into that. And then in my sophomore year of college, I was going to, a county college like close by for the first 2 years with intentions of transferring. I got into a car accident. It wasn't like everybody was okay, luckily, hard lesson on my end, but I was very shaken up. And then I started going to like more gentle yoga classes, and I started to feel the mental and emotional like healing that can come from going to yoga classes. So in the beginning, I would say it was all like physical. I liked the way everything looked. I wanted to nail like the most challenging poses. And then, once crazy things in life happen, I went to a class just kind of wanting to relax, and that's exactly what I got. And I was enthralled with teachers and the stories that they told and how honest they spoke. And I was always very inspired by like public figures or by people who spoke eloquently, in a yoga class. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how it started. It was like a slow progression, like everyone's practice, it starts one way, and then, now it's different, and another 5 years, in another month, it could be different, So I've really noticed how much my practice has changed throughout college and, after college and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely resonate with that as well. I came to yoga for the physical as well, really loved the shapes, and I never really understood why teachers were constantly cueing when I was supposed to breathe until I did yoga teacher training, and I was like, oh, that's what this thing's about.
Yeah, I was so like frustrated because I was like, okay, like I get it. I have to breathe, like, and I'm doing that anyway, but it wasn't like mindful breathing, you know what I mean? Where you're holding a pose and to take an inhale now. Before it was like, you'd hold that like warrior 3 and you would just like be red in the face.
Totally. Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. And so what inspired you to get your yoga teacher training and become a yoga teacher? What was that path like for you?
So through college, like when I transferred to a university, I did an internship for like a wellness and I actually live in the town now that this wellness center is in. They had like massage, acupuncture. They were like a hospital, but they also had like a school of nursing, school of massage, and a yoga teacher thing. So I felt like it was really divine because I had mentioned to somebody in the internship, like, oh, I was thinking about like becoming a yoga teacher, because I had seen like also, I had discovered yoga on Instagram. So I feel like everybody's just inspired to become a yoga teacher through yoga, on the Instagram. And, again, synchronicity at its best. Someone gave me a pamphlet and they're like, we do yoga teacher training. So it was like a 9-month program, 200 hours. it wasn't at a studio, like it wasn't at a traditional, yoga studio. It was more of like a wellness school that held, like I said, nursing and massage. So I did the teacher training at the same time of my last year of college, which was the craziest time. I was very stressed and kind of all over the place. And my I always think like you're exactly where you're supposed to be, like everything is perfect. But I was definitely going through a lot of stress because of trying to finish college, doing this yoga teacher training on the weekends. I had just started therapy, so a lot was coming up, and I was just experiencing so many emotions and so much change, and life was happening at the time. So, but I still am in touch with my teachers that taught me. And I don't even know, unfortunately, I don't know if the school is even going to be up and coming for, the next year. They might actually have to close it, which is heartbreaking to think about. But, I'm still in touch with everybody, and it taught me a lot just about, how much to put on my plate, how next time probably shouldn't pile all that on. But it really gave me the foundations I needed as a teacher. It was a hatha style training. So we learned, basic alignment, sun salutations, breath work, meditation. It was a very I would say black and white, I guess, like yoga teacher training. Like it wasn't, at a studio. We didn't like explore and go to like a trip together. You know what I mean? It was like we just came, did the training, and left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That sounds like, an amazing experience, also an overwhelming one. But sometimes it's almost like you just dive in head first and just get fully immersed with all the changes you're going through. And then I don't know if it makes it easier to process or that sort of thing, but I think the growth definitely probably happens quite quickly, which feels weird in the moment. But, those things happen as they're supposed to, I feel like.
Yeah. And I like to joke that like, did you really go through a teacher training if you didn't have a breakdown? Like, or not even a breakdown, a breakthrough, I should say. It was a very emotional time for me, and I really didn't teach for an entire year after my teacher training, just because I didn't feel ready. And honestly, I felt like I needed to heal from the stress and again, the therapy, and I ended a long-term relationship. Like it was just so much on my plate. So that's why, sometimes it is good to dive in head first, because then you learn so much as you come out of it. But I would say anybody out there, if you have a choice to maybe wait or kind of, find, I guess there is no right time, but just find time where you can really fully put your heart into the training. Because if I'm being honest, I couldn't, because I had to get through college, and I just kind of skimmed by, I guess. But, I learned so much after from going to classes, and that year off of teaching. I knew I didn't want to teach right away because I felt like I wasn't ready. But everything kind of fell into place into where I am now. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's good advice. And then also great that you gave yourself that integration period after. And so let's dive into that. Let's talk about your yoga career a little bit, because you've had a fairly unconventional yoga career, which is pretty awesome. Your first teaching experience was actually at your dad's office. Is that correct?
My very, very first public class was at a studio. A woman I knew, she opened up a sound healing Reiki studio that had a room for yoga. So that was the first time I had ever taught a class, and I had been going to a vinyasa style studio. So I picked up a lot of how to teach a class based on just going to classes. So I didn't do any continuing ed within that year that I took time off. And I really just kind of self-taught myself how to teach based on going to a lot of yoga. And then I felt comfortable. She asked me if I wanted to teach for her studio. And it was a kind of thing where I had been asked before and I turned it down, but there was something about her asking me this. And I was like, if it's not now, I'll never do it. And so I officially did my first class with her, still somewhat in touch with her. She's great. But then my dad did ask me, he said that it's not his company, but it's where he works, and he has like a good reputation there. He's been working there for a long time. And he said that there are people doing a yoga video in the computer lab. And he's like, so I dropped your name. And why don't you do like a donation-based class at first, get your feet wet with teaching? Because once I did that first class at that studio, I was like, okay, I taught my first class and I survived. Like, I didn't die. I made it. And when I went to go teach at a corporate office, like, I just felt like, okay, I can do this. And I like this. Like, I felt good about it. I felt confident. And I think, again, that time that I took and waited really helped. But yeah, the first official couple of classes I ever taught were in a computer lab for a like contracting company for the government. And there were, the buzz of the computers and people walking around, going to lunch and things like that. Like it's so not your traditional yoga environment, but it was fun. I remember I had maybe 10 people show up. Like, it was a great first class, and I made a decent amount of money. And that's when I was like, wow, I can do this. This is great. Like, people really responded positively to it. So that's how it began.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what was that experience like compared to teaching in the studio? Like, were you immediately like, okay, I want to continue doing something more unconventional, or did you still kind of think like, oh, I'm going to just, continue teaching in studios? Like, where were you at that point?
I really hadn't taught at studios at all. I only taught maybe one or two classes for that, the original place that I taught for in the very first class. Mm-hmm. I really had no experience in teaching at studios. So to me, it was like an easy transition because I didn't know anything else. So I was like, okay, like I could teach here. Like I was like, you could teach yoga anywhere, like dim the lights, turn off the computer monitors, like we'll make it work. So I just kind of, I was fine. I really could have taught anywhere at that point. I was just excited to teach. I wasn't teaching at the studio that I was going to at the time. He just didn't really have like a place for me yet. So I liked it. And I still like it. Obviously, I think it is fun, and you kind of have to work a little bit different. You have to be creative with how you set the tone, set the ambiance. You really want to make them feel like they're not at work,
Absolutely. And so how did that first corporate experience sort of shape like your current business? Like, kind of take me through, getting more corporates into kind of the, like, where you are now with your online business.
Yeah. So I was teaching for my dad's office, and I had gone to massage school. So I was also working as a massage therapist in a studio, like around, where I was living. And I like massage, and I still love it to this day. I don't practice it right now because it's just too much to do. But I quickly realized that I enjoyed teaching a little bit more than massaging, just because of how physically different the two modalities are as a practitioner. So I decided I really wanted to try and shift my business that I started at the time to like more corporate side, like corporate yoga. And through meeting somebody, I will say, like, always network, always be talking to people, connect with other wellness people like in your community, because you never know who you're going to meet and who they're going to connect you with. So I was connected with another company in the area, and they said that they would, they were looking for somebody on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that they thought like $50 was a fair pay. And I was like, yes, that is great. So that's how it started, that. And then because I wanted to grow the corporate yoga business, I was teaching at 2 offices now. I had a handful of students that I saw pretty regularly. And I just had asked the students, I want to create a website. And if you wouldn't mind, writing me a testimonial, it could be literally a sentence, like just explaining how yoga helps you at work. Because I thought, the way I would approach other companies would be to use testimonials from students to help get my foot in the door, because people love reading reviews. So that's kind of how I wanted to approach the situation. And that's when when I got the testimonials back, that's when like the light bulb went off, the fire was lit, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't even so much about what the students had to say about me that was like so profound. Like, of course, it was so generous, but just how yoga made them feel in the middle of the day. I teach for some pretty stressful environments, and I heard, some students say, like, it's just nice to feel like a person again. It's nice to get out of the desk and not feel like I'm a job title, and just be able to move my body and stretch and relax, or just kind of have the freedom to do whatever I want. And the fact that it's like in the middle of the day and it's free. So the way I run my business is that the company pays for the classes, the employees do not. And I really encourage that. Anytime I go into business with somebody, if they try to like kind of finagle that, I'm very hard-headed about that. I'm like, this is a perk for them. You guys get enough money as a company. Like, there is no reason to charge your employees for this when this is for them. So I just obtain a lot of testimonials, and I will say that is when the true hustle began. I was living at home at the times, and I was still massaging, so I had, a lot of free time, because if you're a yoga teacher and a massage therapist, you don't have a typical 9-to-5 schedule. So I'd get up really early in the morning, make a cup of coffee, and just get on my computer. I did cold calls, cold emails, went on LinkedIn, looked up people who were in the HR, field, went on Facebook. I reached out to old friends I hadn't talked to and asked where they were working. I reached out to old high school people that I maybe talked to a couple times in high school, just to see, where they're at, if they work for a company that they think would be interested in this. Like, I was relentless about reaching out to companies in my area. And like, I live in an area where there's a lot of corporate, offices. I live near Philly, so there's obviously, businesses in Philly, and I would just, there was nobody I wouldn't reach out to. And through that, I obtained 4 to 5 more clients just by doing that. Mostly LinkedIn, I will say, helped. I would like direct message somebody in HR. If I even got like cold calls, you could do them, but sometimes they get lost in like space and nobody ever gets back to you. Same thing with like an email. If it's like info at whatever the company name is, typically that email is going to get lost. But if you can reach out to a person, that's why LinkedIn is so great. So anybody who's trying to do this, update your LinkedIn profile. Highly recommend that. Make it more personal. Update your, yoga or whatever you're trying to do, resume. And yeah, that's how I grew my business. And I set my own prices, and I thought that they were pretty fair. And that's how it began. And that's how I am where I am now. It was a lot of like diligent, consistent networking.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love the hustle there. And you gave so many good tips in there as well for people who are maybe curious about doing the same thing. And so then along there, like, when did you get the idea to create your online studio and membership site? Like, where did that come from?
So that came from my students, actually. I have to, give them the credit, because I wasn't teaching at a studio. So I was basically doing private classes, for these offices. And they were like, do you teach at a studio? Can we go to other classes? Because sometimes I would only teach at an office maybe once a week. And I was like, no, I don't. And then they're like, do you have any like videos online? Would you ever consider that? And I considered it I sat on that idea probably for like a year and a half. There were so many things I did to avoid actually doing that, because I was so afraid. For example, and I really wanted to touch on this, like, I thought maybe I wanted to go into blogging, maybe being a yoga blogger where I wrote articles. So I wrote 10 articles, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to shift it into the online world. and it just sat in cyberspace and it collected dust and didn't do anything. But now it's my ebook. So even the things that you think like the direction that you're going to go in, maybe you make content for it, you end up not using it, but it becomes something else. So that's kind of like how I started maybe playing around with something online. But then it wasn't until I was having a conversation with my boyfriend, actually, who is also very, he works in like online internet marketing, drop shipping, e-commerce. So he's very well known in like all that stuff. And we were talking about how to do it because I was so nervous to teach in front of a camera. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that and it come off like how I teach in person. And he was like, well, what if you did like a Facebook Live class? And that's like, again, the same light bulb sensation went off where I was like, that's it. That's how I'm going to start it. That's how I'm going to like ease my foot into this. So I started my online membership through a website called Teachable. So that's basically you can put courses on their website and, you can charge a certain amount of money, whether it's just money upfront for the course or like a monthly, thing, like a membership. And I created a Facebook group. So the classes are Facebook Live. So they're first posted to Facebook, and then I would just download that video and then upload it to Teachable. So there would be an archive of classes on Teachable as well as on Facebook. Like if somebody couldn't get to the 7 o'clock live class on Monday, it would be available within the hour or the next day on Teachable. So that's kind of how I started it. And a lot of my students signed up for it because they know who I am. And since then, I've just been building an email list. I created a YouTube channel. So I'm still, I will say, in the infancy stages of doing this. But that's why I'm glad, you wanted to talk to me, because I always wished there was somebody out there who spoke in like the beginning stages of doing something, because you always see the final product. You always see the mass number of subscribers and followers, which is great. And that's, ultimately a goal, I suppose. But I've always wanted to see something kind of start from the bottom and work its way up, which is what I feel like I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. I think there's so much value in hearing, the stages that you're at right now, because like you've built this thing that is continuing to grow and that's been successful for you so far. And I think sometimes people look at like even for myself, and I don't know if you felt this way, but when I started my YouTube channel, I was like, well, I'm never going to compete with Yoga with Adriene. So like, maybe I just shouldn't.
Exactly. And like anybody who starts it, like that's all you're going to do. That's all you're going to compare yourself to. But also like, especially if you're doing this by yourself, like you got to give yourself more credit. Yoga with Adriene has a team of people now. And even in the beginning, she had somebody helping her film, you know what I mean? Which is great. Like, and that's one of the things I wanted to say and emphasize, like, ask for help. If you know anybody who knows anything about filming, editing, like if you don't want to do it all on your own and you kind of want some help, like ask for help. Or if you don't have, like, if you have the money, hire somebody. Like, I had, again, my boyfriend, who is wonderful in so many ways, kind of helped me like piece this together, one thing at a time. And he's like, let's create this and let's create the landing page. And you know what I mean? Like I saved so much time because he already knew so much. And I'm not saying no one could do it. Like anybody could do anything. I really believe in, the human spirit. And if you want something, you can go out and absolutely start from nothing and get something. But if there's any opportunity to ask for help, like do it, because your time is valuable. And when you have someone helping you, it just makes the journey a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I completely agree. I think that that's a great piece of advice. Hey, yogis, we're just taking a quick little break from the podcast to talk about Punchpass. Punchpass is everything you need and nothing you don't at a price you can afford. Their software is simple yet powerful, efficient and easy to use. The team at Punchpass knows what it's like to run a small business like yours, because they are a small business too. Punchpass understands your challenges, and they take pride in delivering great service. When you're with Punchpass, you're not alone. They lift you up and support the connections you have with your client community. They listen, they care, and they're here to support you. So if you're looking for support from easy-to-use software with great people behind it, visit punchpass.com/MBOM to try Punchpass free for 2 weeks. I am super excited to be paired with Punchpass because I think that there's a lot of softwares out there, and sometimes it's really hard to choose what's right. And for me as a small business, I'm looking for something that understands my needs as a small business. And that's exactly what Punchpass does. They have great pricing options, they have great people, and overall, they're just a really great option if you're a yoga teacher or a small business looking for a great software. So once again, head on over to punchpass.com/MBOM to try Punchpass free for 2 weeks. All right, now back to the podcast episode. And so you run your stuff through Teachable. Does Teachable, I have courses on Teachable, but does Teachable actually have like a membership option, or how do you actually do that month to month? Like how does that aspect of it work?
They do actually. I think when I started, I know that there's different like payment options, and like the more you upgrade, like obviously the more, options you have. But I believe when I started with either the free or like the $30 a month option. And I think it's basically like, whenever the member signs up, say you signed up, August 1st, then it would just know to charge you September 1st. So it's just like, it keeps, all of your information in its database, and it's obviously secure. If Teachable, then it's a pretty safe online realm. And yeah, there's definitely an option just because I'm doing it now. But in terms of the actual logistics, I'd have to like go in and look because again, I had a lot of help because I was so focused on like a lot of other things that I was able to have Mike, my boyfriend, help with like a lot of that stuff because he already knew, because he has online courses as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's cool to know that Teachable has that, though. I didn't know that was an option just because that's not an aspect of my business that I have. I'm curious, did Mike have like equipment that you could already use, or what did you actually start to use when you were filming?
I just used my phone and a tripod. He didn't have any like equipment. The two things that I've bought that, one, I kind of don't use it for anymore. The other one I definitely use a lot. I didn't have like a microphone. So I thought, and I had been wanting to buy this. I got a pair of AirPods and I was like, I'll just use those as a microphone. I've noticed that there really isn't much of a difference whether you use them or you don't. So I kind of now use them just for personal use, which like they're a great product. But the one other thing that I bought, not everybody has to do this, but I bought an iPad because it was easier. I would film the class on my iPhone and then airdrop it to my iPad so that I could edit it on my iPad. So it was working with a bigger screen. It held, was able to hold a little bit more memory. It took some of the heat off of my phone. So basically I just use, you have to have like a generally like nice room. I have an apartment right now. So, I just film in my living room and I film with a tripod that's like small. I bought it on Amazon. It's probably like $20. And obviously the iPad is an investment, but it has really helped in progressing. And if something happened to my phone, like I'd be screwed.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a lot of equipment. I do have like a nice DSLR, and I did buy a lavalier mic, so I might transition to that. But I'm just kind of dipping my toe in like new technology and learning how to edit. So I'm like just one thing at a time. But eventually I would like to go to like, my DSLR or something like that. Not necessary, but I have it. So I'm going to try to learn how to use it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I've tinkered with videos as well. And I feel like it's always the technology aspect that's really challenging. And like, I'm pretty like technologically like savvy, and it's still been challenging at times. But yeah, I have a like iPhone XS, so it's like very, very good camera, tripod. And then yeah, I've used AirPods as well, or even just like the microphone from my phone is quite good. And it's my like new iPhone is actually way better than I got rid of my DSLR. It was old, mind you. But I got rid of it because I was like, my videos are coming out way better from this. And then it's awesome because then I can just airdrop it onto my MacBook and edit it from there and upload. So yeah, I think people always get kind of like caught up in this. So it's nice to hear that you've got a really simple system, because that's like what I've used as well for videos. And I think that, you know, it's good enough for the type of things that, you know, we're doing as yoga teachers for the most part.
Yeah, especially in the beginning, you know, I feel like, and you know, it was like the camera was a gift. So it was nice, but yeah, it's definitely, I had to think long and hard about buying the iPad, because I was like, do I really need it? Like I could, you know, just survive on my phone. And that in itself is like, I just went ahead and bought it because I'm like, I'm wasting more time thinking about whether I need this than to just go and get it. And I totally get how people get caught up in wanting to buy like all this fancy equipment. And it's like, if you don't even know how to use it, you're going to waste more time trying to figure out how to use it, when it's like you could be making, you know, short 10-minute videos for like a YouTube channel that you've been wanting to start, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, how can you make your barrier to entry lower so that it's easier to just get started? Because I think that whenever we're doing something that's new or something that's challenging, like there's so much resistance there, and it's like,
yes,
we really need to like make it easy for ourselves. And I feel like having a little tripod, using your phone, finding a space that works, and then just like being able to edit and upload it makes it so much easier, for sure.
Exactly. And you can't compare yourself to the Yoga with Adriene or the other YouTube, you know, yoga channels out there, because it's like they also took years to build up. You know what I mean? Like it's like you're only seeing the finished product. Like, and at some point, if you're consistent, like you could be at that point too, you know? So rather than seeing those, I don't even see like Yoga with Adriene or any of those as like competition. I see those as almost inspiration, because I'm like, if they can do it, why can't I, you know?
Yeah, no, I love that mentality. And so, okay, so we just talked about your equipment and you use Teachable, and then you said, so everyone who's in the membership can join for the live classes through the Facebook group, and then they can also practice later. So they kind of have an opportunity to practice with you from home, but then also have like kind of a database of past classes. Is that right?
Yes. And I don't know if you knew this, but Teachable also has an app. So anybody in my membership could download the app, put in their same username and login that they use to create, you know, their account with me. And then that way they can also have like yoga through the Teachable app. Also, you know, it's on Facebook, which is an app, but Teachable does have an app too. So yeah, like the one thing I wanted to say about my membership now, it's actually a little different. I don't focus on live classes anymore. So if anybody is, you know, making an online business, you will find probably within the first year, you're going to change a lot of the things that you originally started with. I just found that the live classes were not sustainable for me. A lot of them were at like 7 o'clock at night. So by that time, after teaching, you know, 2 to 3 classes, like I would show up at 7 and be like, all right. So I kind of
like, we're doing restorative today.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, I schedule, like I put out a calendar, much like Yoga for Adriene does, of all the classes, the times that they're at. And when I would go live, you know, like I said, I'd have to make sure I was in my apartment, or make sure I was in, you know, like my boyfriend would have to clear out a space like in his house for me to film my class. So it was a lot more like demanding, because it was, I would say it was almost more maintenance. But since I'm doing some traveling in the next week, and actually in October, I just kind of decided, like, because a lot of people I noticed weren't like coming onto the live class anyway, and I had sent out an email and I made sure everybody was okay with this change. And a lot of these people I saw in person too, so I kind of let them know ahead of time. I transitioned from like 3 live classes a week to maybe 3 live classes a month, and then the rest of my content is actually pre-recorded. So it's made it a lot easier. Like I said, I'm going to be traveling, so I was able to film like a couple classes just yesterday, and then I can schedule them to go out on Facebook at the time and the date that they're scheduled to go out. So it's like they're going to be dropping anyway. It's just they're not going to be live. And I kind of like it better this way too, because if a student has like a question or like wants to make a comment about the class, they can do it right under, the video after they're done. Whereas like when I was live, no one's going to go to their phone and be like, hey, what's up? Like in the middle of class, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I just decided, to make that change. And it wasn't easy because like I really did build my whole membership off of this. So I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. But you have to like honor yourself too. You have to do what's best for you. Like I knew I was just kind of getting a little burned out. So you just adjust, you don't give up entirely, but if there's any way for you to change it, like that's what I did. And I'm much happier and much more confident in the membership. I always was, but even more so now because I'm able to kind of work it around my schedule a little bit. And it feels like these classes are, I do them in the morning. So I have a lot of energy. Like by the end of the day, like anybody else, you're a little tired. So it was nice to make that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you brought up a really valid point there too, with like anything that you're doing, you might need to adjust over time. And I think that that's just a natural part of growing and evolving as a human, but also a business owner. And I think that it's really important to always check in with what we're doing. And if it's like the type of thing where you're like, does this class excite me? And it's consistently like, no, it drains my energy and I feel like I have to show up for this. Like that's probably not reflecting very well in your teaching. And then your students might not enjoy it as much. Like they're probably like, they want you to be happy teaching too. Right. So.
Yeah. The response from them was wonderful. And honestly, I don't have a lot of members, you know what I mean? I have a good amount. So it's very easy to make these changes now with like the students that know me, so that I feel like, the membership just gets better and better the more people want to come in, and people who might not know me, they're getting like, I'm pretty much like trying to work out all the kinks, you know what I mean, right now, so that when I have new members come, it's like, I don't want to say perfect, but it's where I want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Other than the tips that you've already mentioned, do you have any other tips for people who are looking to start teaching online, maybe start like an online studio or a membership site similar to what you've done?
Yeah, I wrote some things down, and I am a firm believer in cliches. And I think the number one thing like you have to do is just, you have to believe that you can do it. And you have to believe that the way that you teach is different from everybody else, and that you can offer something different from the Yoga with Adriene, from the other, big YouTube channels out there, other yoga memberships. People gravitate towards people for all different reasons. So I think you have to be authentic in yourself. I use a lot of humor, honestly, in my classes. I really like to I take yoga seriously, but sometimes in a class, I like to throw in a joke here and there. I really like to kind of keep it light because, yoga is serious, but at the end of the day, it is just a class. So I like to kind of keep it light. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to make what you want a priority, and you have to work it into your schedule every single day. You have to work at it every day, and it has to be as important as and this might sound a little extreme, but as eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, even a little bit of something, creating the YouTube channel, creating a business card, creating a website. Just start small and grow on it, but do it every day. It has to be something that you want to do so bad that you will do whatever it takes to make sure that you get it done. And even for me, again, I put off, and I say that very strongly because I put off doing it for a year and a half. And the thing that helped was just filming little stuff at a time. So I'd start with a 5-minute maybe meditation, a 10-minute morning class. I just started small so I could build my confidence, get used to it. I only shared it with a few people just to be hey, what do you think of this? Get a little bit of feedback and just grow on the little things, because it's really going to create the bigger picture. If you can ask for help, like I said, ask for help. If you have a friend, that knows about internet marketing, like I said, I had my boyfriend really didn't have to do much. He was very willing to help me, which was nice. But if you have a friend who knows anything a little bit more than what you know, take him out to lunch. Even if you can't pay somebody offer something in return for their time. If you have money to hire somebody, and talk to other teachers. Keep going to classes, keep your own practice consistent. That was the first thing, quite honestly, which is hard to admit, that went out the window when I started this online membership. Was my own practice ceased to exist, and I only recently just started going back to classes, which every yoga teacher I've ever met can relate to in some way. It was very hard to keep my own practice consistent, but now I'm back on it and I feel a lot better. So yeah, just like I said, being consistent, learning from what you're doing every single day, making it a priority. And I think just asking yourself, how bad do you want it? And it's do it every day.
Yeah. No, I love all of those tips, and I can definitely relate to the practicing aspect as well. I've been teaching a lot this summer because I'm back home in Canada, and it's busy. It's really hard when you're teaching a couple of classes and you're well, I don't really want to go back to the studio that I teach at because people know me, and I don't really want to sit at home and practice because I'm already doing so much yoga. So it is important to have that, but I don't know. I find any movement is good. Sometimes when I'm no, I cannot go to class today and I do not want to get on my mat, I'm okay, go to the gym, go for a hike, just something where you're getting that breath and movement. That's good enough.
Yeah, definitely keeping your body right is going to help keep your mind right. And to me, I see my mind now as a tool for this membership. I am what is making this happen. And if I am not taking care of myself, this is going to suffer. Not that I'm putting necessarily my self-worth into, how hard I work for this membership, but I take it more seriously now. It was actually a Yoga with Cassandra. I don't know if you've ever heard of her on YouTube. I was watching one of her self-care videos, and the way that she said it was so simple, but just hit me like a ton of bricks. She's I take my self-care very seriously. And I was oh. I was I must not be taking my self-care seriously if I'm not doing something, whether it's meditation, walking, yoga, gym, running, you know what I mean? Just anything. If I'm not doing that, I'm not taking it seriously. And it was just kind of very eye-opening for me. And I'm really glad, again, I love the yoga community online. I don't know how I feel so much about it on Instagram, but I like it on YouTube because teachers are very honest, and you learn so much just by watching other teachers exist in an online space. And I love when teachers are very real about, self-care and things like that. So that's why I said, stay connected with other yoga teachers, talk to your old yoga trainer teachers, anybody that you connected with and had a good conversation with about yoga. Have more of those conversations because they're going to feed your soul. They're going to feed your inspiration as well. And it's just nice to bounce, how you're feeling as a teacher off of other teachers. It's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. That community piece is so important. And I'm curious, your career so far has been very non-traditional. You're not really in the studio setting. Have there been any major challenges with this sort of route of teaching? And I kind of ask because I feel like I work remotely and entirely remotely, which means I can travel a lot. And yes, it's a massive blessing, but I always try to keep it real with people. Things are never as glamorous as they seem on the outside. So I'm curious, what sort of challenges you've experienced.
Kind of like what you said. I think, I was highly influenced by the yoga community on Instagram. And, I love Yoga Girl, but I saw her life and I was wow, that's what teaching full-time yoga is like. I'm totally going to have that life. And it is, I work somewhat, now that I'm doing stuff online, I work partially remotely as well. But I still have the classes that I go to, and it's it's hard having an online business and an in-person business too. Working yoga full time is not as glamorous as it seems, but you're right, it does bring so many blessings. I wouldn't want to do anything else. But in terms of challenges, because I don't teach at a studio, I don't have a studio community. I don't get to teach for other teachers, so I don't get a lot of teacher feedback. And some people would see this as a good thing. I teach the same people generally every week. And a lot of teachers like want that because they want that like stable, same, but that's easy. It's easy to teach the same people every week. If you really want to grow as a teacher and as a person, you got to do things that are different. You have to teach different people. You have to teach different ability levels. So that's one thing I have to force myself to kind of go out. So I like to do like as many free classes as I can, like community classes. Anytime, a nonprofit reaches out to me or an animal shelter, like I immediately say yes. I say, don't worry about the money, because it's not only is it benefiting them, but it benefits me because I get to teach a new group of people. So, I have to force myself out of my comfort zone. I have to force myself to try new things. It's very easy to teach the same people in the same places every single week. And again, I love it. But definitely I have to force myself to challenge myself basically. And I don't always want to do it. But when the opportunity presents itself to me, I typically say yes.
Yeah. All of that definitely makes sense. But yeah, I feel like the community piece would definitely be a challenging one. I hadn't thought about not teaching for other teachers, so not getting that feedback. That's an interesting one. It is always like, I don't know, kind of intimidating having other teachers in your class, but then also nice because I feel like in some ways they'll appreciate things like the constant breath cues or like that type of stuff that you're talking about. Yeah. Whereas like you can see that they're engaged with it because they know the benefits versus other people that are like, oh, just get on with it.
Right.
But then it's also like you see them where they're like, oh, I would have done a different pose here, quite type thing. Always interesting.
I think like if I have a question about something, next time I go to a studio, I typically ask a teacher if there's the opportunity to do so. But I think I'm at this point, I'm pretty confident in my abilities to teach. And I think that happened because of how much I teach. I do, are all the classes that I teach good? Probably not. We all have those like classes where you're like, oh, yikes. But then sometimes, it's funny, like it ends and then someone comes up to you and you're like, that was the best class. And I'm like, I'm glad you thought so.
Yeah, that's always a weird experience. So or you think you nailed it and nobody's like, oh, I really liked that. They're all just like, thanks and see you later.
Right. Yeah. So, but that's kind of the nice thing about teaching the same people over and over again is like, I can kind of like go off the course a little bit and they're just kind of like, what are you doing, crazy? And I'm like, no, just follow me along. You'll see. Like, so you have a lot of freedom. Like I typically teach a lot of, sometimes if only one person comes, like I'll do a one-on-one and they love it because I'm like, what do you want to work on? Do you have any questions about any poses? Like this can be a very like open communication type of class. And then you grow like as a teacher because you teach one-on-one and the student grows as a student because they're able to ask specific things that they might not feel like they want to ask at the end or something like that. So that is actually a benefit. And that can happen at a studio, but that is the benefit of teaching at a corporate office is like, you develop a relationship with these people that's like still student teacher, but it's fun and they appreciate like, taking the serious out of this because they take work so seriously. So when they're having fun and they're laughing, like we're all in a good space and it's really nice.
Awesome. I love that. And so last question for you. There's lots of new teachers listening to the podcast. If you could give new teachers out there one tip that you've learned through your career, what would that be?
I wrote this down too, but I kind of like already touched on it. So I'm trying to think of what I would say. I would say just don't put yourself in a box. Don't go to one studio. Don't follow one teacher. Explore yourself, explore yoga, all different kinds of yoga there is. If you're an advanced yogi, go to a beginner class. Pick up on things that you wouldn't normally do. Just explore different practices. Continue your practice as hard as it is. And I only like say it because again, I went on like such a long hiatus without going to a class. Keep your practice consistent, even if it's like 5 minutes of literally anything. Keep your practice consistent. Always know the reason why you wanted to become a yoga teacher. Don't get caught up in how many followers this teacher has or subscribers this teacher has. Like, it doesn't matter. That's honestly partially why I don't post like a lot of me in yoga poses on Instagram, just because I'm like, I don't care. I just want to be real. I just want to teach. Like, so just stay authentic in yourself. Stay authentic in your teaching. Like, don't go to the same classes all the time. Explore. I will say, just explore, have fun. Don't take it so seriously. Take it a little seriously, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, amazing. I love that. That's really great stuff. So thank you for sharing that. And if people want to, follow along with you, learn more about your business, check out your membership site, where can they go to find all of that?
So if you go to my Instagram, it's just Workspace Yogi. So WORKSPACE Yogi, YOGI. That's my Instagram. If you go to workspaceyogi.com, that'll actually bring you directly to my free ebook. So when you give me your email, I give you a free ebook, and it's called Yoga for Work. So there's a lot of yoga poses to do at the desk, at the office, whether you can stand up, you can't stand up, and then stuff that you can do at home as well that can kind of help with, the effects of sitting at a desk for a long time. Yeah, if you go to Workspace Yogi, that'll direct you to that. But if you go to my Instagram and you just click the link in my bio, my link tree, that will take you to everything that I possibly have. My corporate yoga site, my YouTube channel, which is just Workspace Yogi, my membership. So all of it is on my Instagram, Workspace Yogi.
Okay, awesome. Amazing. I will make sure there are links to all of that in the show notes. And yeah, thanks again, Theresa. This has been really awesome. And I love what you're doing with your business. And yeah, I hope it just continues to grow and thrive in all the right ways.
Yeah. And thank you so much for having me on and, kind of helping out the little guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Us little guys got to support one another.
I know. Totally. I've reached out to, that's what you got to do. Sometimes you got to reach out to podcasts, because it's it helps you have a guest, and it helps me because I get to promote, what I have, and we get to have a beautiful conversation. So yeah, it's just, I appreciate anybody whose small business right now is kind of just starting out, because that's where I'm at, and that's where everybody started at one point. So it's just nice to have these conversations.
Yes, absolutely. This has been great.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Theresa Berenato. Definitely go check out what she's up to. I just find her business so inspiring and her journey so inspiring. It's a reminder that we can all create our own paths and our own businesses, and that we don't have to have been teaching for a super long time before we can start building out our clientele and building our businesses online. So I hope that you learned a ton from this episode. And as always, links and notes will be on the show notes page at mbomyoga.com. You can also find me and more posts at Mastering the Business of Yoga on Facebook and Instagram. You can also join the private Facebook community at Yoga Business Badasses. And of course, you can reach me at info@mbomyoga.com. As always, thank you so much to the sponsors for the show, and thank you to you guys for checking them out. I only partner with companies that I really truly believe in and personally use. So thank you so much to Offering Tree, FavYogis, and Punchpass for this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much to you guys for listening to the show, and I will see you next week. Namaste.